We had a very fun matchup between Cade Cunningham and Luka Doncic, and the Pistons lost to the Dallas Mavericks. We'll talk about that matchup, what we saw from there, but mainly, I'm going to tell you guys why what we saw from the Dallas Mavericks is what the Pistons should absolutely not do with Cade Cunningham in today's episode of the Locked On Pistons podcast.
You are Locked On Pistons, your daily Detroit Pistons podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's the deal? Welcome back to another episode of the Locked On Pistons podcast. Per usual, I am your host, Kuka Hill. You can find me over on Twitter at Kuka Hill. I want to thank you guys for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We are free and available on all your podcast platforms. And if you're one of the 50% of people on YouTube who are watching the podcast, or if you're just simply listening to the podcast on any of the podcast platforms and haven't hit that subscribe button over at the YouTube channel, go ahead and do that for me. It's the best way to support the podcast. We're on our road to 3,000 subscribers, continuing to show Locked On that we are the best and fastest growing fan base at the Locked On Network. So again, if you have not done that already, I'd really appreciate it. Hit subscribe over at the Locked On Pistons YouTube channel. Last night, the Detroit Pistons played the Dallas Mavericks. The Pistons lost by 18 points, but actually I feel like it was a little bit of a closer game than it was. I actually thought the Pistons played pretty well against Luka Doncic, again, even though they lost by 18 points. And we got a really fun matchup between Cade and Luka. And later on, we'll talk about, we'll dive deeper into that matchup specifically, what we saw from those guys, some of the fun moments that happened. We'll talk about that. But right off the bat, I kind of want to talk about what you saw from the Dallas Mavericks and why the Pistons should try not to emulate that for Cade Cunningham. A lot of the comparisons that you've seen Cade get over the first, how many months has it been? Like 6 months of the season, 6, 7 months of his career have been Luka Doncic. Like he's not crazy athletic, even though I think Cade's more athletic than Luka. But they move at their own pace. They change speeds. They know how to use their body, know how to use their length. They're smart players. They pass the ball really well. Just Luka Doncic has been one of the main archetypes or main comparisons I've heard about to compare to Cade. There's been some other ones, but Luka has been the one I've heard mainly. And the Dallas Mavericks have found a way to build around Luka, a specific way. And I do not want the Detroit Pistons to build around Cade that same way. And let me tell you what it is. Luka, in this game, he had 21 shot attempts, okay? He ended the game with 26 points and 14 assists. He had 6 turnovers. Now, you may be hearing that and just thinking, oh, well, what's that? What am I supposed to hear from that? In the first quarter where Cade and Luka were really just going at each other, let me just read this one out to you guys. In the first quarter, Cade had 10 points and 4 assists. He had 3 of 5 shooting, okay? In the first quarter alone, Luka shot 12 shots. He had 4 assists and 12 points. Now, you know how insane it is, how wild it is for someone in one quarter of action to not only get 12 shots up, but to also get 4 assists out and also get to the free throw line 5 times. You know what that means? And if you simply watch the game, you will have known. But for those of you guys who don't watch Luka all the time, what that means is that the Dallas Mavericks ask Luka to do everything. He's asked to do everything on the floor for them at all times. He's the one who creates for everybody. He's the one who creates for himself. He has to. The offense, they don't even really run sets. I heard, I think it was Greg Kelser on the broadcast say the Mavericks aren't really running any sets. They're running the same thing over and over. And they do. Now, they're 4th in the West. It's working for them because Luka is insane. I don't think it'll work in the playoffs. I don't think teams that play the way Dallas is playing have really won championships or anything like that. I think the best case was the Houston Rockets a few years ago with James Harden, but even they fell apart in the playoffs. So I don't think this type of offense is conducive to winning championships in the playoffs, but we'll see if Luka's able to do it. But either way, the Dallas Mavericks offenses, they surround Luka with shooters. They give him like a roll man kind of thing with Powell. And they just let him run high pick and roll each time. And he ISOs. And either he's hitting a step back shot, he's getting to the lane, getting free throws. Everything is decided from Luka. It's not like there's another player on the floor. Like, you know how we talk about with, Cade Cunningham, what you guys ask me, who's his best partner? What kind of archetype should he want next to him? And I've said over and over that I archetype kind of like Killian Hayes, just a good version of it. A guy who's able to take some of that pressure off him. The Mavericks figuratively have that with Jalen Brunson, Spencer Dinwiddie. But if you watch them play, at least the way I watched them last night, those guys don't really be asked to do anything unless Luka's off the floor. When Luka's on the floor, he does every single thing. If the Mavs score, it's because of Luka. If they turn the ball over, it's because of Luka. If someone else scores, it's because of Luka. Literally everything goes right through him. And I just don't think that's something that's, one, conducive to winning championships, and two, sustainable for a guy. Guys are going to fall apart like that. You can't ask a dude to control everything and have that kind of load on him. It's way too much to ask of a player. So let me tell you guys some numbers here. Cade Cunningham's usage rate on the season, and if those of you who don't know what usage rate is excuse me, is an estimate of the percentage of team plays used by a player while they're on the floor. Basically, the way I look at usage rate, it's not as simple as this, but basically the way I look at usage rate is how much you have the ball in your hands, really. So Cade's usage rate is 27.4%. Luka Doncic's usage rate this season, and by the way, Cade's at 27%, I actually think is pretty high. I think that's a pretty high usage rate. Luka, though, is at 37.2% usage rate. That's more than that's 10 percentage points higher. He's asked to do way too much. I really hope the Pistons don't build like that around Cade, because Cade will fall apart. I don't believe players are capable of sustaining something like that without falling apart. Like we're seeing it now with James Harden. James Harden's getting a little older, but he's not old. He shouldn't be falling apart. And we've watched him fall apart over the last 3 years with injuries. So we're seeing it catch up to Cade or to James Harden. And I really would rather the Pistons not go that route with Cade. Not just because, again, like I said, I believe guys will just fall apart eventually because it's too much you're asking them to do. But also, I just don't think it's conducive to winning championships. We haven't, like I said, Houston Rockets tried doing it a few years ago. It never worked. Now, you could say they went against the Golden State Warriors with KD and Steph, but even before then and after then, they didn't do nothing with it. I just don't think it's the best way to play. And just to give you a comparison of where Luka is with how much they ask him to do, Russell Westbrook's MVP season, when it was just him on the court, basically, and he had to do everything, was at 41% usage rate. Luka's right behind him at 37%. It's like 4 percentage points behind. So that's like how much Luka's being asked to do. And again, Luka's amazing, and it's working for the Mavs. Let's see what happens with the Mavs. But for the Pistons, I'd rather the Pistons not ask Cade to do so much. I'd rather them not put so much on his shoulders, especially when he's so good at playing off ball. So I think while the comparisons between Cade and Luka are fair, they do some of the similar things. They should not build the similar way either. They shouldn't do that. They should get Cade another ball handler. They should continue to run sets. They shouldn't just high pick and roll it every single time down the floor. Now, at the end of games, if you want to hunt out mismatches and let Cade just, whoever the mismatch is, have them come up and run a screen so we can get the mismatch, yes, that's smart basketball. That's high-level basketball. That's what you see superstars do. But from a game from start to finish, from game 1 to game 82 into the playoffs and trying to win championships, that kind of system I don't believe is the right system to work. And you shouldn't put that much on any kind of player's shoulders, especially Cade Cunningham, who is also good at playing off ball as well. So I just want to point this part out because, again, Luka and Cade get a lot of comparisons because of the way they play and how they move at their own pace, whatever. But I just wanted to stop that there. That I am not a believer in a heliocentric offense where it's just one guy controlling the show and everyone else just a spot up shooters. Because I think it's I think it's easier to guard in the playoffs, which you've seen the Clippers do a pretty damn good job on Luka, or maybe not Luka himself, but just beating the Mavs in the playoffs the last few years. So yeah, I think the Pistons can actually look at the Dallas Mavericks and come away saying, okay, we learned something. We should not build like this. While they're similar players, I think we should go a different route and try to build it a better way. That's just basically what I'm saying. So let me know what you guys think about that in the comment section down below, though. Are you guys believers in a heliocentric offense? Let me know if you guys disagree with me. Let me know all that in the comment section down below or over on Twitter at KukaHill. When we come back, we'll talk about some of the fun stuff that we saw in this matchup between Luka and Cade Cunningham, specifically that third quarter that was really just entertaining as hell to watch. But I'll talk to you guys about that when we come back. First, I have to tell you guys about one of our sponsors, BetOnline.net. BetOnline.net is your number one source for all your sports betting needs and sports info. Find all of the sports developments, including this week's Masters Championship odds, podcasts, and reviews for all the different leagues this season. BetOnline is your continued source for all your sports wagering information, including live betting, esports, and scores. Head to the website today and use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and action today. If you head over to betonline.net, you will see that they have all kinds of things that you can have fun with. You have baseball, basketball, boxing, football, golf, hockey, horse racing, martial arts, soccer, tennis, all kinds of things. You can play with any of that stuff you want. And if you want to go ahead and have some fun with MLB tomorrow, I'm looking at this game between the Cleveland Guardians and the Kansas City Royals. They got the over-under at 8. I'm going to go ahead and take the under at 120, minus 120. Those are the kind of things you can have fun with over at betonline.net. So again, make sure you head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and action today. BetOnline, where the game starts. So I want to thank you guys again for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We are free and available on all your podcast platforms. And if you have not already, head to our YouTube channel over at Locked On Pistons. It's the best way to support the podcast. Hit that subscribe button on the road to 3,000 subscribers. Continuing to show Locked On that we are the best and fastest growing fan base at the Locked On Network. And I want to make sure I say this real quick, because I'm sure, Dallas Mavericks fans are very, what's the word I should say, rabid. They will find any kind of Mavericks content, and they will come at somebody and destroy them if they feel like they're disrespecting their team. I love Luka. Luka is amazing. Luka is like a top 5 player in the league. I'm not saying Luka's bad. I'm not insulting Luka. I'm just not a believer in a heliocentric offense. I think it's not conducive to winning championships. Like I said, we'll see what the Mavs do in the playoffs. If they end up doing something like that, they'll prove me wrong. But I don't think you really have ever seen a heliocentric offense win the title. That's just my belief. I don't believe it really is a way that teams should go about building their teams. But that's just my opinion. I like Luka. Luka's great. The Mavericks are great. They're 4th in the West. I'm interested to see if they're able to pull that kind of thing off in the playoffs. Not hating on you guys if Mavericks fans end up listening to this. I already had some of you guys, some of those Mavs fans come at me on Twitter simply because I said heliocentric offenses aren't great. But anyways, let's go ahead and have some fun here. So Luka and Cade went at each other the entire night. Luka ended the game with 26 points, 14 assists, and 8 rebounds, while Cade ended the game with another 25-5 game. By the way, he's still leading rookies. Like, he has 9 of these, and all other rookies have 7. So he's just blowing these rookies out of the water with this. He should be Rookie of the Year. But he had 25 points, 9 assists, 7 rebounds. He was asked to do a lot tonight for the Pistons, you want to be honest. But these guys were going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Both of them were chirping at each other. Luka talks a lot. I watched JJ Redick's podcast like 2 weeks ago when they were talking about Luka and they were interviewing Luka, and they talked about how much he talks, specifically to the refs, but also how much trash talk he does. And I'm not going to say exactly I watched Luka nonstop, but it definitely was on display here against the Pistons. He talks a lot. But something I thought was pretty fun to watch as well was that Cade was talking a lot this game. I feel like Cade talked more this game than I've seen him basically all season. Actually, I take that back. That game against Houston, against Jalen Green, the one that was on ESPN, he was talking a little bit in that game. Not trash talking Cade. I feel like Cade was doing like more so side talk, but he definitely was talking a lot basically in this game against Luka. And he even picked up a technical foul for how heated and how into it he was. Specifically, there was this stretch in the third quarter that I really want to talk about. Cade and Luka literally traded like 2 minutes each of them. Like Cade for the first, I think it was between the 10-minute and 8-minute mark, he locked up Luka on multiple possessions, stole the ball from Luka like 3 times. One of them led to his dunk, and 2 of them led to either a Killian Hayes dunk, and the other one was a Killian Hayes layup. So Cade was locking him up, and then other times he would come down the floor and score specifically on Luka after hunting him. Literally, the crowd was going crazy. Everyone was standing up. It was getting into it. Cade was going at Luka, and I tweeted like, oh, God, Cade's taking it to Luka. And then literally, just like that, Luka does the exact same thing to him 2 minutes after that. The next 2 minutes, Luka's checking Cade, clamps him, steals the ball for him. Then Luka goes down, hits one of his step backs, hits one of the Dirk fadeaways, gives a dude a half spin, pull-up jumper. He goes off. That 4-minute sequence right there, I wish I was at the game, because that 4-minute sequence probably was just amazing to be around and be able to watch live. I know just watching it in my living room, it was like, bro, we're watching young greatness happen right now. Like, these guys, it's not that they don't like each other. I'm sure they respect each other. I'm not saying that they hate each other, but they definitely knew the matchup. They knew the rivalry that was maybe rivalry is the wrong word, because it's not like they have a rivalry already, but they know they get compared to each other, or Cade at least gets compared to Luka, and they know that they're the 2 guys on each other's teams And you could tell that Cade specifically was coming out to hunt Luka, I should say. Luka was just hunting everybody at the beginning, but Cade specifically, I feel like, was going out to like show Luka, like, hey, I'm here, I'm great too, and I'm going to be here for a while. And these guys were just going at each other, and that third quarter stretch was just so much fun. But even going beyond that, Cade had like a three at the end of the quarter, at the end of the third quarter when he crossed back and hit a three over Luka. Luka had another. Luka had this one play when he scored on Cade, and literally after he scored, he looked to the Pistons bench and was talking so much that even the broadcasters had to say something about how Luka was talking too much. So basically, despite the Pistons losing by 18 tonight, and some guys having to really, struggling a lot, like Sadiq Bey, who shot 1 of 11 from the floor. Killian didn't play very well in the first half. I thought he came back in the second half to play pretty well. Despite them losing by that amount, I thought this game was still fun, simply because of this matchup between Cade and Luka. And you can see why. You can see why people compare Cade to Luka. They both move. I feel like Cade is more athletic, and I feel like Cade can move faster than Luka, but they both move at their own pace. They both seem to move very slowly. Like, they don't speed anything up. They make other people play at their pace instead of the other way around, which is great to see. They're both tremendous passers. They both were. Heck, there was one stretch too, and this isn't even just Cade. There was one stretch in the third quarter where Killian came down, gave a pump fake on the right wing, and then threw a behind the back corner pass to Sadiq Bey, who hit a corner three. And then literally the next possession down, Luka hits a behind the back the exact same way to, I think it was Dorian Finney-Smith, who would then hit a corner three. So Luka literally was just taking it to everybody. It was just basically what I'm saying. It's just a really entertaining game and a really fun game. So if you didn't get to watch this game, I would go back and watch it. I believe you can rewatch it on the Bally Sports app. I would go back and watch it because of two reasons. One, it was really fun to watch. And two, you're kind of seeing like bigger Cade. You're seeing like better Cade versus little Cade. Like, Cade Cunningham in his rookie season is looking up at the guy people compare him to, and they play similar styles, except you can see Luka's, like, I don't think this is like, I don't think this is rough Pistons fans' feathers, but obviously Luka's better right now. Like, I hope that's not like something that sparks debate or gets me, called a hater or something, but Luka's better than him right now. And you'll be able to see within this game, like, stuff that Cade does, and it looks like Luka, but Luka is just a little bit better. You can see that, okay, that's where Cade needs to get to. That's where I see Cade becoming. If he can become that, the Pistons will be this great. Like, this game just had so many like layers to it, like present time, entertaining, but also just future implications. Like we talked about in the first segment. Do you want to build a heliocentric offense around Cade like they do with the Mavericks? Well, if you do, there's your perfect game. You got full display, what they look like, what it would look like. Luka does it every single possession. If you don't like it, I'm sure you can pick out multiple possessions in this game where it doesn't work out. Again, I thought the Pistons played really well on Luka. Luka shot 38% from the field, 8 of 21 from the field. He got 13 free throws, but I thought defensively they played him really well. They switched across the board. I think they stayed in front of him pretty well. He's just an insane passer. He ended up with 14 assists. And the Dallas Mavericks shot 45% from deep, and that was with Luka shooting 2 of 11 himself. So that's the positive about it. If you surround a guy with shooters, even if you clamp him up, if he's a good enough passer, he's going to find guys beyond the arc. And if the other guys are hitting shots, you're going to lose. Like, that's the positives to it. So literally, so many, I kind of went on a tangent right there, but there's so many layers. Entertainment perspective, future implications about how you want to use Cade. Do you want to run this offense? And also, this is what Cade could potentially look like in a few years. This is the guy they compare him to. What's it look like? You got it in full display. It was a really fun game. Again, I really encourage you guys to go back and watch it because it really was that much of an entertaining game, especially that third quarter. But I'm happy that Cade and Luka gave us that kind of matchup at the end of the year too. Usually these end of year games aren't as much fun. You have a lot of guys sitting out. I feel like the play-in has helped a little bit with that, with guys not just sitting out. Also, things are so close in the West that guys aren't sitting out. They're still jockeying for seeding, so that kind of helped. So getting that kind of matchup, that kind of game, and that kind of fun in April was pretty dope, in my opinion. So, again, if you guys haven't watched it, I'd go back and watch it. When we come back, we'll talk about some of the other guys that we saw within this game, some guys that struggled, some guys that showed us some positive things again. We'll talk about that all when we come back from the ad break. So I want to thank you guys again for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We are free and available on all your podcast platforms. And if you have not already, head to our YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons. You guys know the deal. Hit that subscribe button. Best way to support the podcast on the road to 3,000 subscribers. Continuing to show Locked On with the best and fastest growing fan base at the Locked On Network. Again, Locked On Pistons YouTube channel. Hit that subscribe button. I'd really appreciate it. We just spent the first 2 segments talking about Luka and Cade, so we're not going to talk about those guys the rest of the podcast real quick. I just want to touch on and give some guys some credit here before we talk about some guys that struggled within this game. But Isaiah Stewart hit 3 threes in this game. He shot 3, made all 3 of them. Now, I've told you guys this. I've said it on the podcast multiple times. Me, myself, I'm not a believer yet. I really don't know if this stretch has changed anything for me, but I'm not a believer that Isaiah Stewart will become like this big, this stretch big or anything, okay? I don't believe that that's going to be his where he becomes and what he's capable of doing. However, on the 5 games before this, he's actually taking 1.8 threes a game, and he's shooting 55% on these. Now, obviously, if Isaiah Stewart were to be able to add a 3-point game to his arsenal, that would change some things for not only his career ceiling, but for the Pistons. Now, I'm old enough to remember last year, at the end of the year, I'm old enough to remember when this kind of happened last year as well, where it was kind of like fluky. And I told you guys then when I took over the podcast, which, by the way, next week will be 1 year since I took over the Locked On Pistons YouTube channel, or Locked On Pistons YouTube channel, and just the podcast. Really, what I meant to say. But when that comes, we're gonna have a special podcast. That's basically what I'm letting you guys know. But either way, I told you guys this last year that I wasn't a believer in it. Now, that's not to say I'm not going to give him credit for it. Him shooting 3 threes in a game already, I'm going to give him credit for it because I'd rather him shoot these shots when guys are just sagging the paint than him not shoot them. And also the fact that he's making them right now looks really good. I'm sure he's probably going to work on this in the summer. I'm sure he's probably going to work on this throughout his career. I don't think he'll ever be a stretch big. Could he potentially be a guy who could hit a 3 every now and then if you sag off of him like that? Potentially, yeah, maybe. But I don't know. I think it's a good sign, and it's obviously fun to see him hit these 3s at the end of the year. But like I said, I'm old enough to remember last year, and I just don't know if that's something that's ever going to be a part of his game. But when he does hit it, you see he has 19 points and 14 rebounds within a game. It changes stuff for him. And in this game, he didn't even do a good job at all at finishing around the rim. He was awful around the rim. If you take away all his 3-point attempts and his 3-point makes, he was 3 of 10 from the field. He was missing everything around the rim. So I've said this to you guys on the podcast many times, that if there is something that he can add to his game, it probably should be his 3-point, or at least shooting from mid-range, at least like a mini pop around there, because he's not going to add a vertical. He's not going to add arm length, even though he has he has a long wingspan. He's not going to add inches onto his height. He's not going to get jumpier. He's not that's not going to happen. That's not something he can control. But what he can control is potentially adding like an outside shot or a mid-range shot, which could help. So if there's one area that he can go, that I feel like that's the only area he can go, because he's going to. I feel like he's always going to struggle finishing around the rim really over bigger guys and against physicality, simply because he's undersized. He's not that athletic. And so I think that's his best route. So it'll be interesting to see moving forward. I'm going to give him credit now because he's looking really good doing it. It really helps him have a great game. When he's struggling around the rim, he still finished with 19 points because he hits 3 threes. So it was a nice game from Isaiah Stewart. It's going to be fun to see this next year, see if he comes out the gate at least attempting them, because we had to wait until March, the end of March, for him to at least start taking threes. Hopefully next year, if this is something he's legitimately thinking about adding to his game, we see him at least attempt them at the beginning of the year. We'll see what happens. But nice game from Isaiah Stewart. Want to give him credit for taking these threes and hitting the threes. I'm sure that made you guys all excited. Another one I want to take it, and quick shout outs to Saban Lee, who had a nice game, Jamarco Pickett, who had a nice game, Braxton Key, who had a nice game. Shout out to those guys, but I don't think any of those 3 guys matter in the bigger picture or may even be on the roster next year. So I'm not going to spend too much time with them. What I want to stick to real quick, and then we'll wrap up the podcast, is Killian Hayes and Sadiq Bey. Now, Killian did not have a good half in the first half. He had 7 shot attempts. He was shooting 1 of 7. I like the fact that he was being aggressive, but he wasn't getting – when he got all the way to the basket, he was starting to fall away a little bit. He missed a few bunnies that kind of frustrated him at a certain point, and then he ended up passing up an open 3 in the corner because he missed up a few bunnies, and you could see him visibly getting mad at himself. I told you guys, though, that it was going to be a process. We had a really good, like a 2-week stretch where he was putting up a lot of points and being efficient with it. I told you guys eventually there'll be a little bump in the road where he remains, as long as he remains aggressive, that'll be the good thing. But there'll be a bump in the road when he doesn't shoot well from the field, or he doesn't have a high scoring total in a game, or he shoots what did he shoot tonight? 3 of 9 from the field. He'll have those nights. What you want to watch for, though, is the aggression. Is he going to maintain being aggressive the rest of the season, which is only 2 games left? But you want to see him continue to be aggressive, because then you can work with someone who's aggressive in the fact that he's able to get there. Now you can work with it in the offseason. So I like the fact that he came back in the second half and played really well. I thought he played really well in the second half. Got to the free throw line twice. Was still aggressive trying to get to the rim. I really liked it. Got him some free throws. But he really struggled in the first half. I'd rather see him not, let misses frustrate him and make him pass up shots. But I want to take Killian Hayes into and segue that into a different topic, and that's him and Sadiq on the floor together. Now, I feel like we have enough of at least in my eyes, I'm going simply off the eye test here. When Killian Hayes, Cade Cunningham, and Sadiq Bey share the floor together, specifically I feel like after January or so, or even earlier in the year, because Sadiq wasn't playing well earlier in the year, I feel like Cade's going to be aggressive, and now that you got Killian being aggressive, it kind of pushes Sadiq back into a backseat role. With one, I don't think it's awful, but he's not used to that, and a lot of people probably would like to see him be featured more. And two, it just seems like that where he's not featured as much, he struggles shooting. Like, he shot 1 of 6 from deep tonight, 1 of 11 from the field, and I don't think that's a coincidence, because he really wasn't like a feature of the offense in this game against the Mavericks. Like, before this game, or in just the last 40 or so games that we've talked about how well he's played, he's been absolutely a feature of the offense. Like, almost every 2 possessions, he's getting a pick and roll possession, a post up possession, a kick out. Possessions are going through Sadiq a lot the last few months. And in this game, he was really pushed to the back burner. Now, obviously, it's the end of the season game. Maybe it's not anything to worry about moving forward. Maybe the Pistons are simply just trying to get Killian some more reps, which is smart. I think if that's what they're doing, I think that's just smart. But I think we've seen it a few times this season now, where Killian, Cade, and Sadiq, when they share the floor, if the 2 guards are aggressive, Sadiq kind of falls to the back burner, and I that's just what's going to happen if you can't have everybody on the floor getting the ball. So I'm just interested in seeing how that works next year. Obviously, there's going to be a draft pick, and if it's a guard, if it's Jaden Ivey or whatever, he'll obviously start next to Cade, and Killian will be coming off the bench. But either way, I think that's just something to watch moving forward, whether it is Jaden Ivey that gets drafted or whoever gets drafted, Banchero. What role is Sadiq going to find himself in? Because it's likely that whoever they draft in this upcoming draft will push Sadiq back to the 3rd option, at least in my opinion. I think that's probably what's going to end up happening. And when the Pistons end up wanting to contend and everything, I think he'll end up being a 3rd or 4th option anyways. So I think it's just something to watch for in these final 2 games, even though they may not even play in these final 2 games. But I'm just interested in seeing it, and also next year play out what's Sadiq's role going to be when there's more talent on the team, when there's more ball handlers on the team. If they were to add, like I said, an Ivy or a Banchero to the team, what will Sadiq's role be, and will he be able to adjust to that? I'm sure they'll find ways to get Sadiq the ball despite that. But there definitely will be some games when he falls back a little bit into a backseat role. And I think we've seen enough times this year, that when he gets pushed back into that backseat role, he seems to struggle a little bit. So nothing too big of a deal, but just simply just a storyline I want to watch, a narrative, a little narrative I want to watch and see how it plays out next season when the Pistons add through free agency and the draft. But that's all I've got for you guys today. I want to thank you guys for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We're free and available on all your podcast platforms. Make sure you guys go make Locked On NBA your second listen of every single day. Locked On experts covering the biggest stories around the NBA every Monday through Friday in less than 30 minutes. It's free and available wherever you get your podcast. Again, head to the YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons. Hit the subscribe button. It's the best way to support the podcast. On the road to 3,000 subscribers, you guys get all the good stuff. Upcoming next week, let me give you guys a little update for what you guys can look forward to hearing on the podcast next week. Like I said, next week will be the year anniversary of me taking over the podcast. We will do a special episode for that one. And also, starting next week and moving forward, I'm diving into my first year of really trying to do some base level scouting in these prospects and try to look into these prospects myself and try to scout them and, you know, their weaknesses, strengths, what I see from them, what I like from them. We'll start doing that. And the first episode we're going to have, which I think is going to be next week, will be Banchero. I've been doing a little bit of scouting. I spent all day today doing it. We're going to scout a little bit more until then. But look forward to that, because after that, it's not going to be just him. We're going to go through all the prospects that the Pistons could potentially draft at the top of the draft. We're going to have episodes specifically designed for them. I'm sure you guys are going to be excited for that. So make sure you guys stay tuned for next week, that 1-year anniversary and potentially our first prospect in-depth dive episode. So I'll see you guys next week. Stay safe, everybody. Go Pistons. And I'll see you guys later.